Hi guys, I'm TheHande here. So I've been wondering about what to do as my next Finland stuff video. For instance, there is a new parliamentary election coming in Finland in a couple of months' time, but I think it's a bit too early for me to do a video on that, plus that would go in the Leaders of Finland playlist at any rate. And I have also been thinking about doing a video about Finnish food myths, but in relation to that, I also decided that I might as well do a little video about Finnish grocery stores. I know, it does seem like I'm going to the bottom of the barrel on this one, but I have mentioned different Finnish stores on this channel previously in my blind taste test videos, and I decided I might as well give a little bit of an overview on these things. I've been looking at a lot of Finnish businesses lately and thinking about which of them would actually make for kind of fun video ideas, and I'm also feeling a little bit nostalgic for certain shops that aren't around anymore, so I'm gonna talk about at least a couple of those. So there are currently three major grocery store chains in Finland. These are the Kesko Group, or the K stores, the S Group, and Lidl, yes, the German store. Now mind you, these are not by any means the only options you have for grocery shopping in Finland. Finland has an eclectic sort of general store brands that are around, like Tokmanni, Minimanni, and so on and so forth. But the difference between the three stores that I'm going to be talking about in this video versus the other ones is that the other stores also specialize in other general items for everyday use. Whereas the bread and butter of the KS and Lidl stores has always been grocery shopping. And I'm going to just start here with the shop that I frequent the most, which are the K stores from the Kesko Group. If you're wondering why I prefer the Kesko Group stores, there's actually no any specific reason. I have just always found that the K stores, or K-kauppa, is just the most inviting looking kind of store. I've always really liked their branding, and they tend to have most of the stuff that I like. Not to say that there's a huge difference in the products between the K and the S stores, as we're about to get into. Now, a common factor between the K and S stores is they kind of used a three-tiered system to indicate the size of the store in the name of the store. Going from the smallest to the biggest, the smallest stores in the K chain are called just K markets, while the medium-sized grocery stores are called K supermarkets. And then in some big cities in Finland, you will also find a kind of shopping center style K city market, or KCM, as I have confusingly seen in some of the road signs. Now, the K brand obviously has its own generic in-store brands, but the more famous in-store brand that is specific only to the Kesko Group is the Pirkka brand, which you might have seen in a few of my taste test videos. And I have to say that for a generic store brand, I actually really like Pirkka products. For the low price point, they are surprisingly good quality in my opinion. And I don't run into this situation nearly as often because I'm not such a picky shopper. But if I ever have difficulty choosing something at a store based on just price point alone, I have been known to just pick Pirkka because I know that I'll probably not be disappointed. Now, like I said, the size of the store is indicated in the name, although you will notice that with both the S and the K brand stores, the size indication is a bit fluid, meaning that, for instance, the K markets, while they indicate the smallest types of stores, the size actually ranges from very small corner shops to an almost respectable sized grocery store. However, the main area where you can tell a K market from a supermarket is that the amount of shelves in the store you can usually count with just one hand. Whereas the K supermarkets have a dedicated cold and warm food sections. Now, I don't have as much experience with K city markets, and I think they are kind of the main weakness of the K brands. The only one that I visited with any regularity was the one in the center of Kajaani. And what these really big city markets are like is that besides the grocery store section, there is usually a technology section, an office supplies section, and a clothes section. But the main thing that I really hated about that particular city market was the fact that they didn't label their aisles very well. And in the grocery store section, the aisles were quite long, which made it kind of tiresome to look for any specific product. Now, the reason the size difference between the different types of stores is so fluid is that the K stores used to have actually a 5-tiered size indicated by the number of letter Ks that were in the store's name. And this is where that now infamous picture of the KKK supermarket originally comes from. You will notice from this image, however, that it uses the old K-Store logo with the white and blue. For a good number of years now, they've been using this orange version. I kind of honestly miss the old white and blue logo sometimes, but I'm not complaining. I do think the orange version is pretty good as well. Next, let's talk about the S Group. While there are a lot of similarities between the Kesko stores and the S stores, they are actually very different as organizations. Now, it is my understanding that the Kesko group does give the shop owners a fair amount of autonomy, but they are basically all still members of the same store chain, which means that there is always somebody at the top who can make some orders further down the food chain. However, in the S Group, all the different shop owners are basically shareholders in the S Group itself, and if you are part of their rewards program, you actually become a shareholder as well. This is somehow used to calculate all the discounts at S Group stores as well. And the S Group even has its own bank, which means that you can actually make cash withdrawals and deposits at the checkout line. And just as a side note, yes, you can make withdrawals at the K stores as well, but they don't have their own banks, so they just take that money from your bank account. The reason the S Group has such a colorful business organization has to do with the fact that they actually reach out to a bunch of other businesses, not just grocery store. Same is true for the Kesko Group, but we're getting sidetracked, so let's get back to talking about the grocery stores. Now, like I said, most days I prefer to shop at a K store, but if all the K stores in my area happen to be pretty far away, then I will usually pick an S store as the second best option at any rate. The S stores also follow a similar three-tiered system for indicating the size of the store. The small corner store types are called sale. That's right, sale, not sale. The medium-sized grocery stores are the S markets, and then the big department store style stores are called Prisma. The S Group also has its own in-store brand, which is called Rainbow, but I'm going to be very blunt here and say that the Rainbow brand is nowhere near comparable to Pirkka in the overall quality. I mean, sure, it's absolutely passable if you're looking for like toilet paper or coffee filters, but as for the foodstuffs, I've always been a little underwhelmed by the Rainbow brand. Now, both the K and S brand stores are pretty similar in the overall offerings in their grocery stores, but I feel that I'm always a little bit more impressed by how much stuff they manage to cram into one of those K stores. And I seem to have a more consistent problem with the S stores not having one specific product that I need. However, one area where I will say the S Group stores are superior is in the big department store style stores, or Prismas. This is the place where I go to usually buy computer equipment or movies or just, general stuff. And one of the main things that makes it so clear is that while I normally am not a big fan of very uniformed store structures, in a Prisma you can always tell where you are. If, for instance, you find yourself in the grocery store section and you need to get to the technology or general home stuff section of the store, you basically just head for the opposite end of the building. And anything else that you might need, like clothes or toys, are probably located somewhere along the way. And unlike the K-City market that I mentioned, Prisma actually labels their aisles pretty accurately, so there you actually save a little bit of time looking for the stuff that you need. And then we come to the German little stores, which have been around since I think the late 90s or early 2000s. I don't honestly quite remember. But as they are one of the big three grocery store chains in Finland, you can probably guess that they have definitely entrenched themselves in Finnish grocery store culture. But I'm going to be very bluntly honest right here and say that I almost universally avoid going to Lidl for a very specific reason. And that's the reason that I just don't genuinely like the layout of most Lidl stores. Now, the Kesko and the S Group stores have been around in Finland for a little bit longer, and especially in the case of the K-brand stores, it's very obvious that all the stores have just been built into whatever buildings have been available for renting, and this is why your average K-market will look quite different depending on where you happen to live. The same holds true for some of the smaller S Group stores. Lidl, on the other hand, always builds their stores in new buildings that were specifically made for the store chain, and as a result, they all have this barn aesthetic, where everything is just located in a giant big room with aisles running across it. And there's just something kind of inherently disturbing about this that that I don't enjoy. The very thing that I like about the layouts of K&S stores is that they're actually quite different depending on the building, how old it is. They might have interesting nook and crannies, and yes, while that might make grocery shopping a little bit challenging, it's also, in my view, gives the store a little bit more character. As for the products, though, I don't have anything against that. I think Lidl products are just as good as anything you can get from the Kesko and S Group stores. There was a small amount of controversy when Lidl first entered the Finnish grocery store market. Now, this is something I need to explain because I've noticed that this is not the case in a lot of other countries, but in Finland, soda pop bottles, cans, and alcohol glass bottles are something that people just automatically return to the stores which they bought them from. Every single Finnish grocery store has a machine either at the front or at the back of the store where you basically just return these things and you basically get the monetary value of the bottle or can in return, which you can exchange either for cash at the register or what most Finns do, you can use it to take a little bit of the price off your grocery shopping. Now I'm going to use deductive reasoning and say that this is not what they do in Germany, because when Lidl first entered the scene, they did not have these bottle and can returning machines. But even more frustratingly, when people try to return store brand bottles and cans that had been bought from Lidl stores to the other stores, people discovered that they were not getting the monetary deposit back from returning them. And that's because the in-store brands that Lidl owns obviously don't have deals with the K and S brand stores. Now, this was a bone of contention that Lidl eventually gave up on and eventually installed bottle return machines into their shops as well. But to this day, if you buy a drink that comes in a return bottle or can that is only by a Lidl store brand, you'll be very disappointed if you go and return it to an S and K brand store. At least that is my understanding. The same is true for certain foreign cans and bottles as well. Okay, so that's for the current stores that are still in business. But like I told you, there are two stores that I remember very fondly from my childhood that sadly are not around anymore, and that is Siva and Valintatalo. Siva and Valintatalo used to belong to a group called Suomen Lähikauppa, which also owned the Euro markets. I have very vague memories of those things existing. However, we did have a tiny Siva store near where I used to live, and I remember frequenting it quite a bit. Valintatalo was, again, similar to the medium-sized grocery stores like the K supermarkets and the S markets. However, in the late 2000s, it seems like Suomen Lähikauppa ended up in a lot of financial troubles, with Siva and Valintatalo not really able to compete with the K and S stores and also feeling the pinch from Lidl that was starting to take over in the grocery store section. So what unfortunately ended up happening was that Suomen Lähikauppa sold off all of its store brands to the Kesko group, and what happened in the aftermath of that? Quite a few of the Valintatalos turned into K supermarkets, and a lot of the Siva stores ended up turned into K markets. But also, unfortunately, a big chunk of Siva and Valintatalo stores just ended up in disuse, and a lot of them have also been torn down. Now, I remember us going to Valintatalo quite often, and I really like the branding. They used to have this kind of green and orange thing going, and I always thought that was very appealing. And Siva, of course, had that similar blue and white look that the K stores had. Actually, blue and white seem to be kind of the most popular colors for Finnish grocery stores. I wonder why. Now, I can't tell you exactly why these stores were not able to compete with the other ones. My mom used to comment, however, that she felt that the foodstuffs in Siva and Valintatalo were just more expensive than in all the other stores. That's probably the reason why they started losing competition. However, she has also started to really miss that little Siva corner store that used to be around, because now she has to take a car to the closest shop. So I'm not fully sure what is the actual truth. At least a few years ago, however, you could still see Siva stores if you looked at Google Street View in a few cities. But nowadays, if you go there, either the store is just abandoned or it's a K store. Alright, so that was this fun little video. So let me know, is there a topic about Finland that you would like to see me make another video out of? I'm TheHande. See you on the next one.